So as AI becomes more autonomous, the human role actually becomes more strategic, not less important, right? And so we have found that for those humans, for those employees, for those colleagues who are really able to embrace AI and fit it well into their workflow, they actually report a higher job satisfaction because they feel more productive. They get to spend more time on the kind of creative work that they might enjoy rather than the administrative work in the back end. So it's all about how we design that interaction and empower the people with the technology.
Welcome to ODSC's Ai X Podcast, your gateway to the latest in everything AI. Whether you're a seasoned AI expert or exploring how to bring AI into your work or career, we bring you insights from the best minds in the field. We host researchers, practitioners, and industry leaders shaping the future of AI and how it's being applied across research, product, and industry. This episode is sponsored by ODSC Ai East, the premier AI Builders Conference, coming up this April 28th to 30th, 2026 in Boston and virtually. Learn more at odsc.ai/east and use the code PODCAST for an exclusive 10% discount.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Open Data Science Conference Ai X Podcast. I'm your host, Cal Al-Dhubaib, and I'm really excited for today's conversation with Linda Yao. She serves as the Vice President and General Manager of Hybrid Cloud and AI Solutions at Lenovo Services Group, an $8 billion a year IT services business with customers across 180 different countries. She's been recognized as a top 100 executive woman to watch by Women in Tech. And she also has a love for travel, learning, and cultural curiosity, which you'll hear in today's conversation impacts how she approaches AI innovation. The theme of today's conversation is promise to potential. And you'll hear all about Linda's experience building out the AI Center of Excellence within Lenovo and how she's led the initiative to go about building the building blocks they use with their own customers and how they've dogfooded that from within, including their very own contact center. At the end of the conversation, we'll spend some time talking about Linda's career progression and how you too can seize moments of disruption like the AI wave we are in today. With that, let's dive in. Well, hi, Linda. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. For folks who might not be familiar, can you tell us a little more about what you do and the scope of your work at Lenovo?
Sure, Cal. Thank you for having me. My focus at Lenovo, which is the number one commercial PC vendor on the planet, we also build data center infrastructure, cloud solution, mobile devices, and IT services. My focus here is really helping enterprises to adopt the latest technology. And so that can mean anything from cloud and hybrid cloud all the way to recently it means AI, right? Generative AI, agentic AI, physical AI, and making it really real for the enterprise.
I love that. And you are not new to Lenovo at all. You've had a long track record there. So you recently stepped into this new role over AI services. Can you tell us about the challenge or opportunity that you were tasked with addressing in this role?
Yeah, so when I stepped into this role, Lenovo had really set the strategy for the company around hybrid AI. And when we say hybrid AI, we mean having flexibility around your AI deployment, whether you want it to be in the public cloud, right, in a private cloud, on the edge, on your device. Really about bringing AI to wherever your data resides, wherever your use case is, wherever your people are. So when I stepped into this role, the challenge I was given was to help organizations to move AI from excitement into execution. There's like a lot of experimentation happening and continuing to happen, but there's not always a clear mandate or a clear path on how to scale it, especially in a very secure way, a sustainable way, to where your data lives. So my mandate was to bring structure to that journey. To really connect all the pieces of the hybrid AI layer cake together and put it to work in the hands of the business. So we build solutions that really work in the real world We battle test them, like we dog food them internally if we need to, so removing hurdles for enterprise AI, identifying those killer use cases, and really solving those fundamentals of AI readiness. When we talk to CIOs and our
Yeah.
CIO survey, like over 70% of them are really concerned, right? And about security, about data privacy, these fundamental things. And they don't have the right framework to get through it. And that's what my organization seeks to do.
Got it. And we'll come back to some of the customer success stories, but I want to pick up on this whole we dog food it. So you started by building out a center of excellence at Lenovo first. Can you tell us what that journey was like, and then how that translates into what you're now doing with customers?
Yeah, it was so exciting because we started really, really digging into how to help customers adopt a lot of the enterprise AI that we had already been dog fooding and experimenting with in Lenovo for many years. And we thought, if we've done it for ourselves, we've failed fast, succeeded faster, how can we give our customers the confidence to also adopt AI in this way, and then help to scale it? So one of the biggest lessons that we learned is that, AI success, it's never, just about the model or just about the technology. It's about all of the systems and people around it. People, process, governance, they matter just as much as the technology. So we take a lot of those lessons and frameworks to our customers. We help them design systems and workflows where humans and AI collaborate rather than, simply trying to throw AI over the fence.
I love that. My favorite recent quote is that we can't have trustworthy AI without trustworthy data. And I would maybe add to that, and trustworthy people, or at least people who know how to interact with the system successfully. So along those lines, and in my experience, sometimes when clients or organizations aren't getting the best returns on their AI investment, it's because they're missing foundational pieces.
Mhm.
And I've heard some of your podcasts before and your thought leadership about asking the right questions up front. So do you have your checklist or criteria that you look for when you're talking to clients to say, yes, they're ready to make these investments, or here are the things that we need to solve first?
Right. One of the things that you want to solve is definitely just getting kind of customers and adopters out of fear mode. So that means, enabling your people. It means identifying the departments or the workflows or the use cases where AI is the most appropriate to be used, right? You've got to have the right hammer, whether it's an AI hammer or not. Another area that I think is very fundamental is ensuring, to your point, that the data is high quality, that the data is in the right place, that the data is private, that the data is secure, that the data is protected and being used in the way that you want it to be used. Defining the use case and the objective that you have is also super important. AI can be used to augment your employees. AI can be used to automate away some processes, right? AI can be used to even add additional flavor or add additional capability into some of your products where maybe the people haven't been able to, prioritize that particular feature, right? Or maybe there's some edge use case that you haven't had the time to go figure out. So all of these things, really having the end in mind, understanding what you want the AI to do, ensuring and validating that AI is even the right tool. These are some of the basic questions. I think they sound simple, but they're so important and they make the journey much smoother when you thought through it.
Love that. And I know in our conversation, you had mentioned some really interesting differences in perspective between CIOs and maybe some other executives. So in these conversations you're having with clients, what are those differences in expectations where there's a lot of excitement and then rubber meets the road? Here are the foundations we have to build.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, when you talk to CEOs or CFOs who are answering to shareholders or line of business leaders, there's a lot of excitement and a lot of bullishness on what AI could bring to the business, the potential that they see, right? Everything that they see in the market. Sometimes it's a little bit frothy, but where there's froth, there's always some underlying fundamental that's kind of making everything very exciting. when I talk to CIOs, I see that same excitement, right? For example, even today, the majority of CIOs are saying, yes, I want to deploy agentic AI. I see the promise of this technology. Like this is the next phase of enterprise AI as we get beyond conversational interfaces. But CIOs, because they are responsible for the implementation, for the adoption, for the systems and technology, they're also kind of much more aware of what it takes. So CIOs are overwhelmingly excited, but they're also very humble and very realistic about where they are in the journey. So most CIOs are still experimenting. Many have deployed pilot projects. Not a whole lot, only a minority have really scaled something into deployment. So to me, that just means that there's a ton of headroom to grow in AI. And that's why I really, really cherish and admire the enterprises who have been able to deploy some of this at scale so that they can be a role model, right? A teacher, even a testing ground for a lot of their peers in the industry.
Well, it's almost built on top of scar tissue. You don't get things to production without learning the hard way about what works, what doesn't work. And it almost opens your mind to new ways of thinking about, oh, these are the risks that we actually need to be mitigating up front, because there's only so much that you can debate it. So for those handful of examples, and that really resonates with my experience, that have really been successful and made their way to production, can you share some like success stories of like how value is being measured by your client?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a great example is our work with Yili Group. So they're one of the world's leading dairy producers. When I go visit my relatives in China, I love to get a good like iced milk bar from Yili Group. They were a joy to work with. Now, for them, they didn't approach AI as like just a tech experiment, right? They really embraced it and approached its potential as a business transformation. So they were looking at all facets of transformation and helping kind of their employees and asking us to help them think about which departments, which use cases, which parts of the business AI could make a big difference, and also have some faster proof points, right? So they can start bringing more and more stakeholders along. So one of their focus areas was having operational transparency in the supply chain, right? Having the operational transparency and then also being able to match it up with real-time customer insight. So what that boiled down to is matching demand with supply. So we used AI to help them implement what they call a supply chain control tower to get this type of end-to-end visibility. And they have AI agents that use this control tower to process like millions of pieces of everyday customer feedback so that they can really get those voice of the customer insights and then adjust their operations accordingly. So they had a very clear operational objective, right? They want to deliver fresher products. They want to improve their customer experience. And so AI became a really important partner in that and not just another tool. At our company, sometimes we think about employees as carbon-based and silicon-based. Right?
Interesting.
So the philosophy is really, how does each one of us partner with AI and use it to augment what we're doing and take us to the next level, just like a great co-pilot would do.
For sure. And what I loved about this story is that you have this kind of what I classify as a boring problem. It's a very important problem. It's a big problem. Also one that's not glamorous and it's not directly consumer facing per se. It's more of a co-pilot that's helping individuals do their jobs better and maybe sift through information more effectively. In your experience, are there opportunities that folks are maybe excited about that we need to stop being excited about? And conversely, what are the things you wish people really got excited about?
I think that these use cases, which sound a little bit boring, maybe they are about productivity gains, they are great ways to enter into the world of AI. Productivity gains, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel productive, as the word would say, but also helps you step into how to incorporate AI into your daily workflows, into your daily work. The next step from productivity gains for a lot of these enterprises is cost savings. Then they look at how do I take those cost savings and reinvest in my people, in my technology, in my processes to generate top line growth? The Yeely example that we talked about, they looked a lot at CX scores, right? Because they wanted not only to be operating efficiently internally, they want to ensure that wasn't coming at the expense of the customer experience.
Got it.
The employee experience, right? So there are a lot of areas, a lot of pockets where you can get value, and it shows up either directly or indirectly in the way you consume that product.
So you cover a lot of ground, and we will at some point nerd out about all your amazing travels. But the scope of your unit is 180 plus countries, and AI is all ultimately about people. It doesn't matter if you're fully automating a process or you're putting a human in the loop. A human is impacted by it. So you're navigating regulatory requirements, maybe different cultural norms. How are you tackling these challenges in the scope of your work?
That's a great question. I mean, one of the things I love about Lenovo is how global we are and how diverse we are. We do deliver technology in pretty much every market on the planet. And so when we do that, we see that AI deployment is not cookie cutter. It looks a little bit different depending on where you are, the regulatory maturity, right? The policy implications, data residency requirements, and even like cultural or situational comfort with automation and with technology. So some regions really prioritize privacy and sovereignty. Others move faster and they tolerate more risk. But this is exactly why at Lenovo, we're such big proponents of what we call hybrid AI. Because hybrid AI is about being flexible with our deployment, being able to get to the results you want with AI, no matter where your data resides or needs to stay. So we implement AI and allow it to operate where it makes the most sense from both a compliance and a performance standpoint. So there's no, universal template,
Sure.
but that doesn't mean that it has to be hard. It has never been easier to experiment with AI. And if you get prepared and you ask for help, you can even scale it very successfully. So just ask, someone who's done it before to help you out.
How do you build that mindset? And so I know you're blessed to have the experience of going from region to region to region, but for the teams that you're working with, how do you build up that cultural openness?
Yeah, I mean, even if you stay in one place geographically,
Yeah.
there is diversity everywhere that you look.
Okay.
Curiosity has really always been my compass. No matter where I am, I really kind of try to understand what the person next to me is doing. What are the pain points in their daily work or in their
Yeah.
daily life? What do they wish they had? What tool or what type of automation or what type of capability do they wish they had to really move the needle in whatever their objective is? So I've learned to, work with organizations and have them tell me what they want to achieve, to understand how their different teams think about risk, think about value, think about trust, right? All of this then comes together when you have a shared objective to then back into strategies that respect that local context rather than having a one-size-fit-all approach. I like to call it form factors, right? The ability for a company like Lenovo to deliver AI in small, medium, large, and extra large form factors. Because we have that portfolio that goes all the way from the phone in your pocket to, the energy of your hybrid cloud, it allows us the flexibility to be able to do that.
I love that. One of my first roles, the company had run out of space in the team that I was assigned to. And so I ended up getting assigned a desk in the contact center. Yeah, it was very interesting. And they had me all the way at the end, so I wasn't in between all the phone calls. But my desk mates were all folks who were operating in this customer service centric world. And oh my gosh, I learned to appreciate their role in a way that I never could have if I wasn't sitting right there and occasionally overhearing, wow, that was a difficult conversation. So I 100%, I love that mindset of look for diversity within your own environment and try to walk in somebody else's shoes.
Absolutely. I love that you spent time in a contact center and that it really helped you discover some new things at that point in your career. Because the contact center is actually one of the killer apps, or what I like to call killer use cases
For
in
sure.
enterprise AI. Even in our contact center at Lenovo, right? We run one of the largest contact centers in technology across the globe. And in the contact center, we are developing this great harmony between those carbon-based employees and those silicon-based agents. And we're using AI to help the human agents, right? We're using AI to augment with AI agents. We're using AI to kind of clean up the data and the knowledge base to make everyone's life easier and to make the customer experience better. Because it turns out a lot of customers, it's not that they don't want to talk to a bot. If that bot is useful, right,
Sure.
some problem, very responsive, I think there's a generation who would talk to a bot any day of the week rather than a real human. And then that frees up the real humans to go do like the real strategic work with the more complex problems.
For sure. Sometimes we just want things done. Like, hey, United, if you can route me through to my next flight. I'm on United all the time for my work. So
Love United.
if
That's my hair.
there's, I love it. I love it. And if there's a delay, sometimes with your phone, it already knows, hey, I see you have a delay. Here are 3 flights you can get on. I don't need to talk to anybody. That's great. But man, when my bag is lost and I'm on a multi-leg international trip, I want a human, and I'm so glad I can get through to somebody to talk to help me navigate that.
That's right. And that goes back to ensuring that just because you have the AI hammer, it doesn't mean every possible scenario is the right nail.
Well, not to pick on anyone, but a few years ago, we had Klarna saying that, hey, we don't need a customer service team. We're going to use AI. And about a year ago, they've changed their tune and they're now hiring customer service people. And I love how you're describing what Lenovo is doing. It really is about empowering humans. In fact, I picked up on we're using AI to curate data. We're using AI to help find information and empower humans to do problem solving. So this brings me to my next question for you. Where in your experience are you finding that AI systems are making human work more valuable and more in demand?
It's everywhere, right? So this latest kind of wave of enterprise AI adoption, it's like any wave of technology adoption. It's all about how you interact humans with machines. And you hear a lot about the human machine interface. And it's because even with AI being able to automate and being able to converse and being able to do so much, humans become then even more essential in oversight, in governance, in judgment, in creativity. So AI can coordinate a lot of workflows, right? They can even take agency on decisions, but humans are defining ethics. They're defining the accountability, right? They're reasoning through a lot of problems that maybe haven't happened yet in the historical data set. So as AI becomes more autonomous, the human role actually becomes more strategic, not less important, right? And so we have found that for those humans, for those employees, for those colleagues who are really able to embrace AI and fit it well into their workflow, they actually report a higher job satisfaction because they feel more productive. They get to spend more time on the kind of creative work that they might enjoy rather than the administrative work in the back end. So it's all about how we design that interaction and empower the people with the technology.
And it's also about trust, right? So you talk about individuals who feel more satisfaction. And I'm assuming that some of the context there is these individuals feel empowered to use the AI systems. They feel like they can rely on these AI systems and trust them to get their jobs done. Can you tell us how you go about that in your scope at Lenovo? How do you build trust into and around these AI human collaborations?
Yeah, it all has to be designed into the AI deployment and the AI solution itself. Once you understand the objective, we really zoom out and look at this with an organizational lens. At the organizational level, the biggest blockers to deploying an AI solution at scale are concerns around, data security, right? Around response bias, lack of clear accountability for the inputs and outputs of maintaining this agentic system.
Sure.
Many organizations don't yet have AI-ready policies, right? That's a fact.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's new, right? It's new technology. We forget sometimes that ChatGPT only hit the world by storm like 4 years ago. So that's not a whole lot of time when it comes to something like, redefining your governance policy. And so that's what makes some leaders hesitant to scale, even though they might be very excited by the potential of this technology. So at Lenovo, we lived through that, right? And we address that now by embedding responsible AI principles from the start. We were, one of the organizations where early on we established a responsible AI committee so that we have that transparency, that auditability, human in the loop controls at the right time, continuous monitoring. And we've discovered that trust, it's not something that you can just kind of bolt on at the end or like, wrap up with a bow. When you design it into the architecture, when you kind of design it into your model, it makes it that much easier to scale down the road.
And that's a really great insight, Linda. I'd love to unpack that just a little bit more. So it's important to build the trust in these systems. What are some of these blockers or barriers that you frequently have to solve through in order to get these policies in place, in order to get folks on board with understanding, oh, we need observability, we need controls, we need guardrails. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it really is about having a playbook to address readiness at all layers of the organization and across all the different facets of your people, your process, your data, and your security. We found that, for example, when we look at people adoption and getting over the trust in AI, the understanding of response governance, the understanding of model drift,
Sure.
the education, the training, and the method you deploy for the board of directors might be very, very different than how you have to enable the employee on the floor who is working with this AI every day. Or maybe the manager who's not working with the AI every day, but needs to be there to empower the employee who is, or needs to understand the workflow that's going to change for the employee because of the AI enhancement. So that's just one example to show how even with something like a targeted focus on people adoption and people enablement, you got to tailor it to the scenario. That's also true for technology, right? When we think about bringing AI to your data, even in the same use case, right? I think about something like autonomous driving. Even in the same use case, we're deploying AI in very different spaces. We're employing it into the brain of the vehicle, in the vehicle control unit. We might be deploying it at the edge device, right? For the driver of the vehicle who wants to be able to see a lot of this navigation information or AI recommendations on their mobile phone or in their GPS. We're deploying it in the autonomous cloud, right? Where all this data then might get downloaded to a core data center so that then the autonomous vehicles can understand the data across the entire network. So even in this situation, when we think about readiness, not only does your data center infrastructure have to be ready, your AI on the edge inside of your vehicles has to be ready, and your device side on device AI has to be ready as well.
And I really, in particular, resonate with this whole notion of personas and how you prepare them to recognize the elements of readiness. And if only just to be able to stop and ask the right questions. Hey, do we have the right guardrails in place? Hey, it sounds like this is going to be running in real time. How are we going to know when a mistake happens? What do we do when something goes wrong? Do we have to staff up to respond to that? So I really like that takeaway a lot, that it has to be the right flavor of that for the right person.
And I'm really impressed that all the FOMO around enterprise AI adoption has really been channeled into, in my mind, a positive outcome, right? Like, so the FOMO of adopting enterprise AI has finally incentivized a lot of companies to clean up their data, to take a look at their governance policies, right? To invest in organizational change management, to look at upskilling and training for their people. So even though for some organizations, it might feel like the holy grail of agentic AI adoption is a little bit far. I don't see it that way. I see that a lot of these foundational steps and guardrails that are being put in place are actually going to strengthen the organization for that AI adoption and, quite frankly, for other types of digital and process transformation as well. It's super exciting to me because having been in this industry for so long, I know that some of these investments are like less sexy, right? Or maybe more back office.
Sure.
But now AI has become a great carrot to clean up a lot of these things and enhance a lot of these basic foundations.
I'm a big fan of Tom Davenport's work. And so he does this annual survey of Fortune 1000 executives. And the 2026 edition, unsurprisingly, 99% are saying AI is our top investment priority.
Mhm.
Well, guess what? The vast majority of respondents also say, as a result, and unsurprisingly, now investing in data quality.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
It is the fuel for AI. You can't get anywhere without it.
well, and I love the adage we're data driven. And then how data driven can we be if it's on poor quality data?
That's right. That's right.
So you talked about the CIO survey that you conducted earlier. I'm curious, in your population, tell us a little bit more about the scope, how many people, where are they from, and what's top of mind for them?
Yes, we surveyed thousands of CIOs globally.
Wow.
So in nearly every market in which we do business, we surveyed the CIOs in those regions. And so we found that AI has definitely moved from promise to now expectations of performance.
Great.
Organizations are showing that when they are truly able to operationalize AI, they are seeing tangible returns. So in some cases, they're citing like nearly $3 in ROI or value for every dollar invested. At the same time, as I mentioned earlier, most companies are still in pilot mode or they have limited scale deployments, especially when it comes to agentic AI and physical AI on the horizon. So to me, that's the tension, right? They're really eager to adopt, but they might not be ready to adopt. And that's the readiness gap that we talked about. And whether it's like governance frameworks not being mature enough, right? Like data quality not being high enough, skills gaps still persisting, these CIOs, they are realizing that if you're not on the boat, you might be too late.
Sure.
So you really are motivated to make the investments so that they can get there. And so that to me is the real inflection point, right? Because the next phase of AI isn't going to reward, ideas or experimentation alone. It's going to reward enterprises that can operationalize that AI at scale, get those outcomes, right? Feel good productivity gains, real cost savings, top line growth, customer retention, all across, these hybrid environments, wherever their AI needs to be deployed. And that's super exciting.
I was reflecting recently on where the real IP is in the AI world.
And it's not the models.
I think it's all of this orchestration work that happens in between the humans and the data, and then how you connect them back to the AI. In my experience, like that's the 80 to 90% of the work. Getting the model in there and deciding what how you're connecting what bits to where. That's not easy, but that's not the hardest part.
Yeah, I think you're getting to something there, right? Like being able to bring together all these pieces that are necessary for a successful AI solution and turning it into your competitive advantage, like that is super important. So it is very exciting right now because the industry power dynamics are shifting dramatically because of AI. And it's positioning a lot of entrants like Lenovo to this space. It's positioning us well for it because it is about who has the practical, pragmatic innovation to deploy AI at scale, who's kind of been there, has the scar tissue, as you mentioned earlier, who's failed fast so that we can succeed faster. 2 or 3 years ago, I give you an example.
Yeah.
A lot of companies were trying to sell off their legacy data centers, right? Because it was a real estate drag or, they didn't need this type of compute power or workload anymore. Now, you can't build AI infrastructure fast enough, right? Like reopening nuclear power plants so that we can this. So that swing alone tells you how quickly this market is being rewritten. So at Lenovo, we're scaling up our we call our AI library of solutions. based on that superpower I mentioned earlier, that we've dog fooded, we've done it before. So we have very kind of practical, pragmatic solution that can be accelerated with AI. Killer apps, right? Like the lights out contact center, like the lights out warehouse, right? Like the supply chain control tower. These are all things that we've implemented. We have thousands of, if not tens of thousands of end users for them. We operate them on a global scale. And so if we can do it at that scale, we can pretty much do it at any scale.
So you're investing in building the building blocks that then empower your customers to pull them together in recipes. Is that fair?
Yes, that kind of best recipes view, having pre-built templates that we can then customize the last mile to fit your enterprise, to understand your data, to adapt to your people. That is exactly the type of superpower that we want to bring to bear. We want to make sure that our customers learn from all of our scar tissue, right? Our customers learn from what worked and didn't work for us, because sometimes that's where you find the biggest findings.
I love that. And what in all of this, what are you personally most excited about in the next 12 months?
Personally, I'm watching the next wave of AI in the enterprise very closely. There's a move toward more and more autonomous systems and physical AI. So we're starting to see models move beyond, predicting the next word, right, toward approximating real world logic and even reasoning. That shift is going to open up a lot of new enterprise applications, especially as it gets into this physical world. It'll become much more tangible.
So what should we be doing to prepare for that future world?
Look, I think no baggage, right?
Okay.
Don't bring any baggage or be afraid of having legacy thinking slow you down.
Okay.
Enterprise AI and enterprise AI at scale is new to everyone. So if you feel behind, I actually see that as an asset, because if you feel behind, that means you're aware that there's something exciting out there to be behind on. And in fact, most of those who feel behind, those are the organizations that actually have a lot of the impetus and motivation to accelerate. And that ends up bringing them ahead, right? So as long as the design principles are there, the objective is clear, right? You've fixed the foundations. There's really not much that can go wrong as you think about trying out use cases when you have someone who's done it before, right, to guide you through. When you have pre-built templates, so you're not building from scratch and you have the right building blocks. And when you have that pragmatic lens to ensure that you're taking the right risks, that you're putting in enough governance, and that, you're operating quickly enough to get the learnings you need.
What I'm hearing is, frankly, the one red flag is arrogance. Enterprise AI is not a game where arrogance is going to serve you well. And in fact, your comment on CIOs earlier about their humility, about acknowledging the limitations and asking the right questions, like that's kind of like emerging to me as this theme of the critical skill to thrive with AI.
That's right. Even with the best conversational AI, you cannot talk your way to AI success.
That is so true. So as we wrap up here with our conversation, I want to take a step back and just reflect on your career. You've had such a great run. You've worked at Boeing and IBM. You've shot up the executive ranks. You're leading AI transformation at a major global company. What can you share with our listeners about how you got to where you are?
It's so interesting because I realize that I'm in this position now because I've had the great fortune of witnessing like 3 waves of enterprise AI already in my career. When I started my career, I was in finance, in New York, and that was the time when high frequency trading was really becoming the talk of the town. You remember Flash Boys being published. You remember like the CFTC and these government agencies trying to figure out like, how are these firms getting such low latency? Why are they all building up data centers in New Jersey, right across multi-exchanges? It was very exciting though, because it was, one of the first times that I had seen the power of these huge data sets being applied to like a real enterprise application in the real world, right? Like in this case, in the finance industry. Then like you fast forward 10 years, because even at that time, finance and high frequency trading was a pretty niche application. of this big data. But then you fast forward 10 years, right? And then that was when data and compute power was becoming much more accessible to individuals and to organizations. So at that time, that was when all these companies were taking another look at this data they had been gathering and really looking at how it could become a valuable asset for their companies rather than just kind of sitting in the back office in tape storage. So we talked about this because you were, the first person to get a data science degree at your university.
Yeah.
At the time, I was at Boeing in aerospace, building out their data science function, establishing connections with these universities as they were all building their data science programs, their machine learning degrees, and taking these really incredible, really interesting aviation and aerospace data sets and applying data science to them and just extracting insights on what we could do, both for the top line and the bottom line and the customer experience. And then, fast forward again 10 years and we're in this episode of Enterprise AI. The thing I love about the wave that we're currently riding is that when ChatGPT kind of took the world by storm, it truly democratized AI in the sense that it made it more tangible and made it understandable and less scary to everyday consumers like you and me. So whereas previous waves of enterprise AI have targeted certain types of industries, right? Certain areas where there was enough data or certain types of data where, you had software engineers or computer scientists who knew how to write the algorithms or manipulate the data. This current wave that we're in, everyone can use AI, right? Sure. Everyone can, harvest or, bring up their own set of silicon-based agents or coworkers. And so I think that it has really unleashed the potential of AI across all industries, across all organizations, no matter how large or how small you are.
I'm almost taking away from this, right? You had these 3 different waves that, and I hear a lot of folks say, we're behind. It's too late to get in the game now. It almost sounds like now's the best time to get in, especially when there's not a lot of best practice established yet. It seems like that's the story of your career. You had the grit to get involved and apply curiosity, and you were willing to experiment to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it can feel a little bit scary, but that's actually where the opportunity is, right? So, I always advocate for systems thinking because AI doesn't sit in isolation, right? It touches on a lot of different facets, functions, right? Operation, culture, strategy. And so with an opportunity, right, like deploying AI, no matter what your superpower is, no matter what your passion point is, you can find a way to make it shine and to apply it to an AI implementation.
That is such great advice. On that note, I'd love to ask you as we come to a close here, what's the best way for folks to keep up with your work and maybe learn from some of your mindsets and storytelling experiences?
I would love to stay connected. For me, LinkedIn is a really good place to connect. I regularly share insights on not just enterprise AI adoption, but also hybrid cloud strategy, responsible AI, how AI translates from work into real life. And so I always welcome thoughtful conversations with people who are trying to, make technology practical and impactful in your daily lives.
I can attest, and I really enjoy your bite-sized videos where you introduce concepts. So definitely connect with Linda on LinkedIn.
Oh, thank you. Likewise.
Of course. Well, Linda, thank you so much for taking the time to join the show. I learned a lot from this, and I know our listeners will as well.
It was great to chat with you, Cal.
This episode is sponsored by ODSC Ai East, the premier AI Builders Conference coming up this April 20th to 30th, 2026 in Boston and virtually. Learn more at odsc.ai/east, and don't forget to use the code PODCAST for an exclusive 10% discount. Supporting our podcast by subscribing not only helps our small dedicated team at ODSC AI, but also unlocks exclusive benefits for you. Your engagement directly contributes to the growth and success of our community. Please subscribe now and don't miss out on the next enlightening episode.